Chewie, take the professor in the back and plug him into the hyperdrive.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, recording live from the Studio Simon Stumper Hall of Fame here at the Studio Simon headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky.
The Studio Simon Stumper Hall of Fame. You know, one of the things that I've thought, and it's, someone would have to comb through 140-ish episodes of this podcast to figure this out. I'd kind of be curious to know what my record was on Stumpers. Like, I imagine I'm pretty close to 500. It feels like the Studio Simon Stumper Hall of Fame in Louisville, Kentucky should have those records on hand at some point. So maybe...
with the benefit of hindsight, I wish I had kept track of all that, but I didn't, and I can't go back and undo that. And it's really not important whether you win or lose, Paul. It's how you play the game.
It's whether we're having fun, Dan, and we are having a great time. We're going to have a great time on this episode talking about a team, a ballpark, the Greenville Drive. They are an affiliate of the Boston Red Sox, and you and I were chatting before we started recording here about a playoff series, a recent playoff series involving your New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. We saw quite the pitching performance to close out the wild card series between the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Yeah, I was so excited about this game. By the way, I don't know if we've established this on this podcast, but I always say this apologetically because most people hate the New York Yankees. But I was born in the Bronx, where Yankee Stadium and the previous Yankee Stadium was located. And I'm a lifelong Yankee fan. Please don't blame me for that. When I became a Yankee fan, they were horrible. So I wasn't rooting for the winners. I was rooting for losers. Then they got back to winning and as you all know, have the most World Series championships by far than any other team, and frankly, probably deserve all the hate they get. But I don't hate them. I love them. And I was so much looking forward to last night's game, obviously hoping the Yankees would win, but the excitement was this pitching matchup, which was it was historic because it was the first postseason game ever where both starters had fewer than 15 major league starts. So you had Cam Schlittler, which we need to say carefully, who was making he had 14 starts, so not even a half of a major league season. And then you had Connolly Early of the Red Sox, who only had 4 starts, but great numbers in those 4 starts. And I was just so excited to see this game. It's crazy that a deciding game of a playoff series was going to have these 2 young rookie starters. And then for the game to end up going like it did with Schlittler striking out 12, not walking a single batter, and pitching 8 innings, which is virtually unheard of in this day and age of pitchers maybe going 6 innings in starts they make, was just incredible. It was, and I'm still riding that high.
Well, it's less than 24 hours later at the time of this recording. The reason I bring it up, though, is because the Red Sox obviously came up on the short end of the stick in that game yesterday. But this team that we're talking about today, the Greenville Drive, is very closely associated with their parent club. They have a miniature green monster out in left field, which is very cool. I've been to this ballpark. We'll talk about that later on during the interviews here. And they've been affiliated with the Red Sox since they became the Greenville Drive in 2005. So 20 years now with that Red Sox affiliation, to the point where even their ballpark is modeled after their parent clubs. So this team is very closely tied to the Red Sox while not having that Red Sox name. They do some fun branding stuff around the Red Sox. So obviously we'll get into that. But I just really like the tie between when a major league team and a minor league affiliate have a close connection like that, you can see how you can build that relationship without having to name this team the Greenville Red Sox.
Yep. And so I'm given all of that and more. I'm really looking forward to getting the chance to listen to this episode and to come back and do a stumper about it.
Yeah, we're going to go talk with Eric Jarinko from the Drive themselves, and then we're going to speak with Heath Dillard of Visit Greenville, South Carolina, and you'll see why we do that when we get into that interview. And then, Dan, we'll see you on the other side for a Studio Simon Stumper.
See you, bye.
All right, everyone, I am so pleased right now to have Eric Jarenko, who is the general manager for the Greenville Drive and has been the general manager for the Greenville Drive for all 20 years of the team's existence. Eric, good morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Really psyched to be talking about the Greenville Drive. I should tell you that I have been to one Greenville Drive game in my lifetime. It was part of our Baseball Palooza road trip that I do with my college buddies. It was maybe 8-9 years ago, so it's been a little while. I remember the ballpark was beautiful, and I remember that the surrounding area was beautiful. We walked maybe like a mile from our hotel to get to the ballpark, and I remember hearing at the time that the downtown had really built up in that course of, like maybe 10 years that the team had been around at that point. So there was a sort of correlation between the team existing and the team and the city sort of building up and growing. How much you've been with the team this whole 20 years? How much of Greenville, South Carolina's overall well-being is related to the existence of the Greenville Drive?
Yeah, I mean it's been an unbelievable ride. First off, when I first joined the organization 20 years ago, I was 2 years out of college. I'm originally from outside of Philadelphia and came down to Clemson.
Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. And fell in love with this community. It's pretty easy to do. But went and worked for the Orioles, the Frederick Keys affiliate, for one season after I graduated, and then came back to Greenville in 2005 as the media relations director. Fell in love with this community once again, and kind of just over the years took on more responsibilities, and then had the fortune of taking over as general manager going into our 2014 season. But the ballpark has really played an integral role in the revitalization of downtown Greenville. We're also in a unique situation in that our ownership group owns the team and the ballpark. So the ballpark was built with 100% private funds 20 years ago. The team relocated from Columbia, South Carolina. Our ownership group had bought the team while they were still in Columbia, tried to build a new ballpark there. Kind of plans fell through. This territory opened up when the Greenville Braves left following the 2004 season. And it was a prime candidate for a team to move here. And as our owner, Craig Brown, will say, he was either smart enough or stupid enough to suggest a downtown ballpark fully funded with private money. And I think this has just exceeded everyone's expectations of what it can do, or the success of the team and what it can do for a downtown. If you look back 20 years before the ballpark arrived, downtown Greenville was kind of already starting to revitalize. You had Falls Park and the Liberty Bridge, the suspension bridge that goes over we have a beautiful waterfall right in the middle of downtown Greenville on Main Street. So the Liberty Bridge and Falls Park kind of came online in 2005. There was a big renovation to the Peace Center, which is home to like off-Broadway shows and concerts and things like that. And then we kind of came along in the West End, and then it took about 5 or 6 years for everything in between kind of Falls Park, the Peace Center, and Fluor Field to fill in. And now everything's expanding even further west of the ballpark.
One of the things I like to do when I visit a town is, one of the ways I explore it is I'll go for a run. And I usually like to have that run incorporate the ballpark. And if there are bridges, I love bridges. So I remember that waterfall quite well, actually. I remember that there were paths in and around there, and I could sort of explore there. So yeah, I remember really liking the town quite a bit and really enjoying the ballpark. Several of the guys who are on Baseball Palooza with us are Red Sox fans. Shout out to Jeremy and Perlman and Scott. So we have some Red Sox fans. So obviously for them, visiting Fluor Field seeing the green monster out in left field right by that. I guess there's like a hotel that's right there, sort of overlooking the ballpark. Is that a hotel
It's
or office?
it's offices, so our
Okay.
offices are in that building. We're in the second floor, and then there's
Oh,
two other companies above us on the third and fourth floors, and then three restaurants on the bottom floor.
okay. It has kind of a. You mentioned the Orioles. It does have kind of a Camden Yards vibe about it. You know, that big sort of brick building out in the outfield.
That's kind of what we've always told people is you come to Fluor Field and the dimensions and Green Monster are exact to Fenway Park. You've got the office building and condos kind of in left field that kind of invokes that Camden Yards look. And then in 2017, as part of a renovation expansion to the ballpark, we took over the rooftop of that building as well and created a really nice hospitality area up there. So you kind of get the rooftop of Wrigley Field. So we like to say you get three really unique MLB experiences all in Greenville, South Carolina at Fluor Field.
Very cool. Yeah, it was a fantastic ballpark experience. You mentioned the team came from Columbia, South Carolina. They were the Capital City Bombers at that point. Moved to Greenville, South Carolina, became obviously the Greenville Drive. The brand, the name has been the same for these 20 years here. What is the significance of that name? Why is this team called the Greenville Drive?
Yeah, and being honest, I think I started the week after the team name had been announced, and coming in as the media relations director, my phone was flooded with calls I mean, people absolutely hated the name to start. I mean, the Greenville News, our local newspaper, still jokes with us that it was one of the most like controversial, like letters to the editors submissions of how do you call a team the Drive? It's not plural. What's the mascot going to be? All that stuff. And at the time, I mean, I credit to our owner, credit to our marketing agency, Erwin Penland, that came up with the branding. I mean, it really speaks to our community now, but there's kind of three meanings behind it. One is it's the driving entrepreneurial spirit that has revitalized Greenville into what it's become today. It's the drive of our community leaders, our business leaders that have turned Greenville into one of the most sought after cities in America that folks are trying to replicate. Baseball is one of the sports where you don't have to be the biggest, the tallest, the fastest, the strongest to be good. You have to have that drive to succeed. And then last, that plays a small part into it. This area does have a rich automotive history with Michelin North America's headquarters here, BMW North America's headquarters here, and then Clemson University's International Center of Automotive Research. So it's kind of those three things that really play behind why the team name is the Drive.
There's a certain amount of symbolism in it. It's very swoopy, right? Like it's the letter G in red, and then the sort of cross stroke of the G is it looks like it's sort of part wing, part 4-lane road, and it's got like the script Drive in it. But for the most part, it's not imagery, right? Like it's not a recognizable image. It's not a character. It's not specifically a road. It's the reason for the name is kind of metaphorical. I mean, the first two reasons that you named there were sort of conceptual rather than concrete. And then the design of the brand itself, which, as you said, came from Erwin Penland, which is, a local firm rather than one of the big, design firms out there in the minor league baseball landscape right now. That brand is also kind of conceptual, right? Like it's sort of shapes and concepts and swoopiness and ideas without literally representing a thing. You don't see a ton of that in minor league baseball, but it's been working for you guys for 20 years. What's the thinking there in this sort of metaphorical name with a brand that is not literally representing something?
Yeah, I think 20 years ago, I think part of the reason behind the logo too was Greenville and the upstate region has a very rich traditional baseball heritage going back to the textile mills and the textile leagues. Shoeless Joe Jackson, Jim Rice is from this area. Nolan Ryan came through here when he was a member of the Greenville Mets. So there's a rich baseball history, and then you incorporate the colleges into that, with Clemson being close by, University of South Carolina. So there's kind of that traditional playing off the past type look to the logo. And then, the wing or the tail that Drive is on kind of plays off of that automotive history. And it kind of invokes kind of that 1950s wing that you would see on Plymouth vehicles or Chevys and Dodge and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that logo was really originated from 20 years ago.
It does feel like a hood ornament. Now that you say that, right? It feels like a hood ornament. The team, it's affiliated with the Red Sox and has been affiliated with the Red Sox for the entirety of your existence in Greenville. But the Red Sox don't own the team. It's a different ownership group. But I feel like the ballpark, the colors in this brand, a lot of it is very Red Soxy. That must be a pretty solid relationship with the Red Sox for you all to base the ballpark and your identity around a team that doesn't own you.
Yeah, no, it's been a great relationship with the Red Sox for 20 years now, and with them through at least 2030 under the new PDL arrangement. And from top to bottom, I mean, I've always told people, I mean, naturally I grew up a diehard Phillies fan. Our owner is originally from Detroit, went to Michigan State, so he's naturally a Detroit Tigers diehard fan. But just the relationship that we've had with the Red Sox for 20 years from top to bottom, with Sam Kennedy now down to the player development department with Brian Abraham and Paul Tabani, has just been unbelievable. I always tell people, like, for 20 years, like, the coaches, the players that have come through here, obviously every player that comes through here is talented because they've made it this far, but just everybody has been great people to work with as well. So that's made the relationship really special. And I mean, at the end of the day, our side, our front office, our business model is the fan experience. It's fan safety. It's making sure everything stays affordable and anyone can come to the ballpark. But the experience side for us too is we also want to make sure the players, while they're here in Greenville, have a great experience. And every April when we get our opening day roster and they're here for the first time, our owner, Craig, says to the team, as we all kind of introduce our front office to the team, is, when your journey ends, and we hope that it's in front of a locker at Fenway Park, we want you to reflect on your minor league career, and hopefully Greenville was your most favorite stop along the way. And we're going to do everything we can from an experiential standpoint to help you along the way.
I was, obviously before these conversations, I like to noodle around on the team store and just see, what you all are doing with the brand. I remember from our stop there with Baseball Palooza that the guys, in particular the Red Sox fans in the group, really liked the G logo that was in the style of the Red Sox font. Obviously, you sell Red Sox gear, Red Sox proper gear. You play off the green monster with some Floor Field T-shirts, playing on that the way, that they would at Fenway in Boston. But I have to say my favorite is the T-shirt that says, and I'm also from the Philadelphia area, so y'all is not a part of my vocabulary. But the T-shirt that says Green Monster y'all, that combination of accents right there, it's really hard. It doesn't roll off the tongue for me because I don't do either of those accents. But Monster is spelled with an AH on the end, and then of course you have y'all. That's a funny T-shirt, but it's a funny combination of cultures, right? Like the Massachusetts and South Carolina. I guess that sort of epitomizes the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's our most popular shirt, to be honest, in terms of sales. And it's been really interesting to see too just how this community has evolved over 20 years. Because I mean, when we first opened up the ballpark, team first came to town in 2006, everyone that came to games was born and raised in this region. And then over time, as Greenville and downtown and Main Street is on top places to retire to, best Main Street in America, all that stuff, Greenville has really shifted into a tourist destination. It's also become a big foodie town. So we see now a lot of visitors from the Northeast, a lot of Red Sox fans who come down to visit and have even relocated here. I joke with people, it felt like during COVID, this was like one of the few areas that wasn't affected by things shutting down in terms of the amount of people that relocated here from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from the West Coast was crazy. So we're seeing a lot more of transplants from the Northeast that identify with that Red Sox brand as well.
No, that makes a ton of sense, honestly. One of the things I noticed when I was noodling around on the team store, and just by virtue of covering minor league baseball for sportslogos.net, is obviously you have the Copa brand, the Ranas de Rio. I hope I'm saying that okay for my Spanish-speaking friends. Ed Rivera, apologies if I said that wrong. So you have the Copa brand is the Ranas de Rio, but you don't have a ton else in terms of like the food frenzy identities or alternate identities, or you're like one of the only teams in minor league baseball that hasn't been the traffic cones for a weekend, right? Like, so you really are fully bought into this brand that's been around for 20 years, and you don't muddy the waters with a lot of alternate brands. Again, sort of bucking some of the trends in minor league baseball right now. What's the thinking there in not really exploring or muddying the water with alternate brands?
Yeah, I think it still goes back to that whole, there's a rich history of baseball here in Greenville, so we don't want to trivialize the past.
Mm.
So it's just finding new ways to kind of honor that history. I'll be honest, that Copa identity, that hat, the on-field hat I think is our top selling on-field hat as well. People have really loved that. And in all honesty, the Rana de Rio was our second attempt at a Copa identity. Our first one was we tried to kind of translate drive into more of a Hispanic kind of identity, and it was energía, which was energy, and the logo was still was an E with the wing. The colors all stayed the same, and the fans didn't really identify with that. And then we kind of had a roundtable discussion with some Hispanic community and business leaders, and they were like, "Listen, you need to go. We know you guys are very traditional, but you really need to get out of your comfort zone and go with the brighter colors and do some more there." And that's where we came up with the Ranas de Rio, and it plays off of our mascot. So our mascot is Reedy Rippet. He's a frog. He was developed by an elementary school student 20 years ago because we had to design the mascot contest. So that loosely translates to river frogs, and that's how we came up with it. And then we, using some, pinks and baby blues and stuff like that. It's been a logo, a t-shirt, a jersey, and a hat that fans have really liked. And then we created another identity 2019 maybe, or 2021, the Black Spinners, which was a black textile league team here in Greenville. And we've been able to connect with family members. There's only one living member of the Black Spinners still alive. He's about 85 years old, but there's a lot of family members still in this area. So we kind of did the same thing, kind of had a roundtable discussion with them and said, what would you guys like to see us do in terms of honoring the Black Spinners and the history of black baseball here in Greenville with the schools before, segregation and everything. And that's kind of where we came up with that look too. So it's anytime we try to do something that's really honoring the past here in Greenville.
Yeah. And that's, that Black Spinners story is, such an important part of that story to connect with the families. And then, even just what you're saying about with the Ranas de Rio is to, to connect with the community members and to hear and, to receive that feedback and to fully buy into it. The brand that you came up with, the frog is kind of this fat frog head, and the baseball bats are serving as these, as the frog legs. When I was on the page, I noticed, the frog is like this lime green, and then there's like a sort of powder blue and a like a bright pink associated with it. So really fun brand. I will say you see behind me here. I'm a dad hat guy. I like the dad hats, and so one of the ones you had on the store was like a tritone dad hat with like the pink brim and the white front panel and and then the blue back.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, I got to make it back to Greenville because that's the hat for me right there. So
no, when we designed that hat, we were sitting around. It was myself, kind of some folks from our marketing agency, our merchandise director, and we were like, what are we going to do for the hat? And we had we had the lime green, we had the pink, we had the kind of sky blue or baby blue, all in the logo and the jersey. And just me as a baseball fan, I said, it'd be a cool look is you kind of take that old Expos hat with the pinwheel look, but you make it pastel and use those bright colors. And that's really how we kind of came up with that hat. Is if you put it side by side, I always tell people, if you kind of put it side by side, that old Montreal Expos hat that had the pinwheel look, it's like that, but it's kind of in brighter fluorescent pastel colors.
I am a sucker for a tritone cap. So yeah, that one that's absolutely a great one. And like you say, so different from the sort of classic solid colors that you have with the Drive brand. It's a cool brand all around, and it's a part of that brand obviously is the ballpark. The whole sort of baseball experience there in Greenville is really fantastic. So, well, Eric, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your morning here to come talk about the Drive. And I know we're at the time of this recording, we're just entering the off season here, which I know is an equally busy time for you, just in a different way. So best of luck with the off season. Also, at the time of this recording, you and I have no idea what's going to happen in the playoffs for our Philadelphia Phillies. So we'll just when this drops, by the time this drops, there may be developments there. So we'll just have to hold our breath and see. So, Eric, thank you again. And where can people find you? Where can people find the team online and on the socials, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me on today. I mean, this was great. Love to do these types of things. As far as the Drive go, on Facebook, Twitter, I guess it's X now, Instagram, our accounts are just at Greenville Drive. And then my personal accounts kind of across all those as well is just at Eric, the letter S then for my middle initial, Jarenko. I don't tweet and Instagram as much as I used to in my earlier days because I've gotten in trouble sometimes on some of this actually when it comes to sports related. So kind of just stick to the Drive stuff.
You got to be careful out there these days. That is absolutely true. So, Eric, thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you at the ballpark again someday.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm so pleased to have on Baseball by Design Heath Dillard, who is the president and CEO of Visit Greenville, South Carolina. Heath, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing so well. I am so pleased to be talking to you about this beautiful town of Greenville, South Carolina. I was fortunate enough to visit. I was talking with Eric Jarenko in the previous segment here about how I got to go for a run along the river. You guys got some great bridges there, beautiful downtown, lots of great restaurants, all that sort of thing. Before we get into that, we were chatting before we hopped on the recording here. You are not just the president and CEO of Visit Greenville, South Carolina, but you have some experience in minor league sports yourself, both hockey and baseball. What is that experience that you have?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I spent a season of minor league hockey in Charleston while I was in college with the South Carolina Stingrays of the ECHL, and then after college, I moved from Charleston to Charlotte and worked my first 5 years after college in the front office doing sales and marketing work for the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate for the Chicago White Sox, and so. We were just joking that when I was working, it's been a long time. So when I was working for the Charlotte Knights, we were actually in a suburban stadium in Fort Mill, South Carolina. So we weren't even in Charlotte. We weren't even in North Carolina. And we were dying to get the stadium that they have now built in the early 2000s and to see what that ultimately became and the gorgeous ballpark that they have now and what it meant for the redevelopment of the third ward there in Charlotte is incredible. And it's exactly what the Drive did here. And I know we're going to spend some time talking about that. But while we were trying to get that developed 20 years ago in Charlotte, Greenville was doing it. And now they just wrapped up their 20th season, and everything they promised to do back then they've done and then some.
Well, as you say, Charlotte's new ballpark is incredible. Downtown ballpark, incredible views. The Drive's Flora Field, also a beautiful ballpark, and has been sort of the centerpiece of, and correct me if I'm not characterizing this correctly, but Flora Field has been the centerpiece of a renaissance in Greenville, South Carolina, that the town has experienced a lot of growth and flourishing maybe. Flora Field, flourishing. I'm sorry, that's not my best work. I'm going to workshop that a little bit. But the town has experienced, the city has experienced sort of a renaissance that coincides with the 2 decades that this ballpark and this team have been in town.
Absolutely. They're in what we consider our west end of downtown. 20 plus years ago, it was an area that you really wouldn't have wanted to be, certainly not after dark. It was not an area that was very promising. There were no retail shops. There were no restaurants. A lot of the buildings were boarded up and in dire need of redevelopment. And it's right along the train tracks. And they were literally on the other side of the tracks, as you might say. And, when I've talked to their owners, Craig and Jeff Brown, and the family, I tell them that I get a chance to speak to sports management and tourism management students from around the region. And I always talk about the catalytic nature of venues like a minor league baseball park. And I talk about their being valuable in three ways. One is that the financial and economic impact that they can derive from literally hosting the events inside the walls of the stadium. And number two is the catalyst that they become for real estate development in and around the surrounding area. And number three is this source of community pride that is generated with having a hometown team, with having a ballpark, with having places that you can walk to and from before and after games and concerts and the things that the facility can host. And they check all three boxes in a way that's really hard to replicate that I've seen anywhere around the country. They just finished, as I said, their 20th season. And we've seen, thousands of business permits pop up over 20 years, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of capital investment in the blocks that are surrounding the stadium on either side. Now, Main Street continues down through the West End, and the West End is a continuation of our really beautiful award-winning downtown. And much of that West End development is where it is today because of Fluor Field and because of the way that the Drive operate their business. The Brown family would say that they're the front porch of our community. And they're right. They do so much good and they bring so many people there and create this sense of place, a sense of pride that the entire area benefits from their work.
So we were there with Baseball Palooza about 8-9 years ago. This team's been around for 20 years. So we were there at about that halfway point, a little bit past since that founding. How much has Greenville changed since then? What would be new to me if I were to come back to see another game at Fluor Field?
Well, what you would see now is just the infill between what has been Greenville's revitalization north of the river and where Fluor Field developed, which was maybe another quarter mile, between maybe a quarter and a half mile south of Falls Park and the Liberty Bridge, which is a really sort of iconic area. And where at one point in time you would have had two sort of distinct areas, you now have this continuous, really beautiful, walkable downtown. You can stumble into bars and restaurants, retail, local, distinct retail shops, boutique shops that are local to here in Greenville, all along the way. And also, our city has done a remarkable job of keeping the greenery, right? That trail system that you talked about, parks, taking advantage and leveraging the river. And so the character of the community hasn't necessarily had to suffer because of the redevelopment. You still have the historic, beautiful brick buildings. There's a new brewery directly across the street from the ballpark. It's an old cigar warehouse. Absolutely gorgeous redevelopment of that facility and a great place to go pre or post game. All of that is in between the historic area of downtown and the new developing area of West End Greenville.
I don't know if you chose this word intentionally when you said that you can stumble into the bars and restaurants, but we on Baseball Palooza, we're very intentional about that, where we make sure that we are within walking distance. Our hotel is within walking distance of the ballparks that we go to, in part because we know we're going to have a few beers. And we went, it was August 24, 2017 that we were there. That's a Thursday. And I know it's a Thursday because it was game one of our Baseball Palooza, and that's always on a Thursday. And I remember also that it was a Thursday because it was Thirsty Thursday, and they were selling super cheap beer at the ballpark. But the reason I bring this all up is not to talk about the debauchery of Baseball Palooza, but I think Greenville, I believe my memory is correct on this. I think Greenville is the first place where I ever experienced one of those bars that you can go into and you have a wristband and the taps are all on the wall and you basically scan your. I had never been to one of those until Greenville, South Carolina. I couldn't tell you what it was called, but it was somewhere in the 1 mile between the ballpark and our hotel. So
yeah, the bar you're referencing is probably called Hoppin', and you just have the RFID chip, which is kind of cool. You can pour yourself 2 ounces and taste a whole bunch of beers, find one you like, pour yourself a full one, and everything's charged by the ounce. It's pretty incredible. You got more than 100 beers on tap by selection. It's self-serve. It's pretty amazing.
Well, after a full ball game of $2 PBRs or whatever it was, having all those opportunities available to us, that was fun. I've seen that a couple of times since then, but Greenville was the first time I had seen that.
That's great to hear.
The team is called the Drive, and the reasoning behind that team name, according to Eric, was primarily around the city and the drive forward that the city is experiencing. There's also, he said, secondarily, the drive that baseball players have as athletes, and then finally a connection to the automotive industry that
right.
Greenville has. It's pretty unusual for a team to not have like a specific character or something literal represented in their logo. And Eric and I sort of talked about this. Are there things that you think of as, president and CEO of Visit Greenville, South Carolina, that could represent the city, for, a lot of teams, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs are
Right.
named for the pig iron that's forged in the steel mills of Eastern Pennsylvania. The Charlotte Knights are the Knights because Charlotte's the Queen City. Is there something, when you think about, if there were, not that the drive is ever going anywhere, but is there something about Greenville that you think could be like the foundation for a more literal team name?
It's interesting. As I've thought about the drive, my mind initially goes to the auto manufacturing that exists in our region, and their mascot is Reedy Rippet, right? He's a frog, so it gives some flavor back to the river that's been so important to our region for all of its history. Long before it was settled and textile mills grew and everything else. I think when you understand the history of Greenville, the drive makes a lot of sense because this was a region that was literally the textile capital of the entire globe, and as that industry went overseas, this community was devastated economically. Unemployment rates soared. People really didn't know where the next paycheck was coming, and that's where you saw a lot of those buildings begin to get boarded up. What had always been sort of a thriving downtown was now empty. And so when I think about the story of the drive, it very much resembles the story of Greenville. And so you had Michelin, a French company, decide to put its North American headquarters here in the upstate of South Carolina. And now you have the corporate office, you have the Research and Innovation Center, and you have manufacturing all located here. In the early to mid 90s, you saw BMW decide that this would be their largest manufacturing facility anywhere in the world relocated here. And suddenly you saw this community get a breath of, fresh air. It was, sort of renewed life into this community. You had people who were hardworking, skilled labor who now had industry that they could go work for. And so I think the drive of players and wanting to develop skills and this community being one of sort of bootstrapping itself and looking into the future and investing and betting on itself are all great. But I think that sort of nod to what automotive manufacturing has done. Greenville has more than 530 some odd international companies that have invested here. It is that sort of automotive piece has become very synonymous with what our region has to offer. And it'd be really hard knowing Greenville's history and how it bet on itself and revitalized itself in the wake of the textile industry leaving, finding something that could be more synonymous with this community.
The three teams that I can think of that had names based on the textile industry are the Burlington Sock Puppets, whose logo is actual socks.
Yeah.
The Kannapolis Cannonballers, who are named for Cannon Mills, and they've got a human cannonballer. And the erstwhile Lowell Spinners,
the Spinners.
The logo was yarn. So
and one of the former textile teams here were the Spinners. We've got a lot of former textile mill teams that we celebrate. The drive, one of the drive's community games every year, play a nod to a Negro League team that was here called the Spinners. And so the drive is situated in this area that we call the Textile Crescent, which is literally right in the footprint of where all of these textile mills once stood. And so it's really cool to see them pay homage to many of those old textile baseball teams that were so fun. I still have this vision one day that as these mills are redeveloped into apartments and condos, that we have a community night where everybody who now lives in these neighborhoods that were once mill neighborhoods, many of the homes were often owned by the mill. Where I grew up, not too far away from Greenville, my grandfather's home was a former mill-owned home that he bought when the mill closed. And I just have this really cool vision of one night, everybody from these various neighborhoods that were once mill towns representing the jerseys of their former mill name, the mill team. And I just think that'd be a very cool opportunity for our community to embrace its history of a textile town and paying homage to what that meant. You have Joe Jackson, which I'm sure you guys saw the statue and all of that, right? He was a mill ball player before he was, a White Sox player.
Well, Heath, this has been so much fun, such a cool town to talk about and to sort of revisit in my memory from my visit there in Baseball Palooza in 2017. I appreciate you hopping on. If people wanted to learn more or plan a visit to Greenville, South Carolina, where would they go?
They would go to our website, visit greenvillesc.com.
That's easy enough. Heath, thank you so much. This has been great. And perhaps we'll see you next baseball season when the Drive get going again in 2026.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It is time for a Studio Simon Stumper, live from Studio Simon Stumper headquarters in Louisville, Kentucky. Dan, how did you have any time to compile my record while you were waiting to start the Stumpers?
Working on it.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll report back on that. If there's something we know you love, it's a spreadsheet. Dan, there's so much to talk about here. This brand is a little bit abstract in a way that a lot of minor league brands are not necessarily. So I'll be curious to see, sometimes I'll even throw some ideas out there. I'll be like, oh, something about cars or driving. I don't know. It's an abstract brand, and I'm curious to see what you come up with.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting about this team was its name, and not so much the word drive, but the city name of Greenville, because for any of you fans of minor league baseball, I'm sure some of you, a lot of you, I don't know how many of you, might know that there were, up until the 2020 contraction of the minor leagues, two affiliated minor league teams in a city named Greenville. Now, one of them, of course, is the Greenville Drive. The other one was the Greenville Astros Paul is getting a hot cup of coffee from Baseball by Design wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett.
I'm very excited about this.
And the mug he's drinking from has a monkey on it.
Yes, it's a capuchin monkey. At first I thought, is it a sloth or a monkey? Oh, is Amy gone?
No, it's definitely a monkey.
It's a monkey, not a sloth. Okay. All right.
Yes.
From Costa Rica.
So you had the Greenville Drive and you also had the Greenville Astros, but they're no longer the Astros. They are now the Greenville Flyboys, who play in the Collegiate Summer League version of what used to be the affiliated minor league Appalachian League. But one of the differences between both teams is the spelling of their city name. Greenville Drive, it has 3 E's in it, but it does not have a 4th E, whereas the Greenville, now Flyboys, has 4 E's because it's green with an E at the end of Greenville. And that got me to wondering, okay, if there's two...
Dan, may I interject with a story about that very quickly from Baseball Palooza?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say this was 2017, our Baseball Palooza, where we have a couple of guys whose main role, I put together the agenda. Our guy John is usually responsible for the van. Steve does the hotels. Jeremy buys Dairy Queen for everybody once a trip. So everyone has their own responsibilities. But there's one guy basically who considers it his job to basically show up and sit in the back of the van. Has no idea where we're going. His wife needs to contact us to see where we're going to be because he never knows what to tell her. And we flew into Charlotte and we were on our way to Greenville to see the Drive. And the one and only time he has ever piped up with anything where he was trying to be helpful was when we were crossing into South Carolina from North Carolina, and he thought we were going the wrong way because he didn't realize that we were going to that Greenville. And so he's never tried to be helpful since.
Okay, well, it's Paul, you've got a story for everything, it seems. So so I was wondering how ubiquitous are Greenvilles
Mm.
in the United States and beyond? And I looked it up. So our studio Simon Stumper today asks, how many Greenvilles? Now this is without the extra E.
Oh,
So spelled like the Greenville Drive city spells their Greenville.
okay.
How many Greenvilles are there in the United States?
50.
Are there A, an even dozen, B, 25, and even half of the 50 states, or C, 49, one short of all 50 states?
What would be
So
the
it-
one state that did not have a Greenville, like Utah? There's no Greenville, Utah. Although maybe there is. I don't know. This is a great question, Dan. I said 50 kind of facetiously. I don't think it's 49. I don't think all 50 states minus one have a Greenville. I think it's going to be 12 or 25. If there are 25 of them, not that many of them have baseball teams. Right? Because we only have the Drive. There's been, the team in North Carolina.
we're going to talk about that
Okay. All right.
after you answer the question.
All right. Dan, I know that I said that every state has to have one. I don't even know if half the states have one. How many Springfields? Like Springfield's the one where like everyone says, there's one of these in every state, right? And that's why it's so hard to know about where the Simpsons Springfield was, though. Although I think we've pretty well established that is in the war-torn state of Oregon, Springfield, Oregon. Dan, I'm going to go 12. 12 Greenvilles.
Well, you should have gone with your first inclination, not 50, but you properly eliminated it being 49. You were right to do that. But there are quite a lot of Greenvilles there. There are 25 Greenvilles in the United States. So I actually found that remarkable. Come on,
That is pretty
half
remarkable.
of the states have a Greenville.
Are there any states that had 2 Greenvilles?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
Maybe this all came from an atlas I had that was given to me by my former sports branding partner, Peter Thornburg, pre-internet days, because we talked so much about branding and where we would put teams and stuff like that he bought me an atlas. And so, but this goes back to sometime in the 1990s. And who knows, maybe since then somebody's added in Greenville, probably not. But here's some more absolutely fascinating Greenville facts. The Greenville with an extra E is in Tennessee, and it is the only Greenville with an extra E in the world. So every other Greenville is spelled without that extra E at the end of green.
Yeah.
And there is only one other Greenville without the extra E in the world.
Oh,
Do you want to do an off the cuff double header stumper? What do they call that?
the nightcap.
The nightcap. Do we want to do a nightcap stumper just off the cuff?
I do.
About where that Greenville is?
Do I need to give you a chance to come up with 2 additional countries to add to the real one?
Nope.
Oh, you just want to, this is a fill in the blank. Which country has a Greenville?
No. I'll give you 3.
Okay.
Okay. Is it A, Canada? Is it B, Greenland? Or is it C, Liberia?
Canada was my first guess. Greenland would be fun. I don't know anything about Liberia. I'm going to go Canada.
Of all places, would you believe it's in Liberia?
Is it Liberia? I almost was like, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, if you already knew one country and you had to invent 2 others, would you put the one you knew at the end or would you put it at the beginning? I don't know if I overthought it, but Canada was my first guess before you even started that process. So anyway, so Liberia, there's a Greenland, Liberia.
Greenville.
Greenville, Liberia. Do they have a baseball team?
They don't, but professional baseball has been played in 6 of the United States 25 Greenvilles without an extra E.
Mm.
Greenville, Alabama, Greenville, Michigan, Greenville, Mississippi, which, interestingly enough, one of the names of the teams in Greenville, Mississippi was the Swamp Angels in 1923. Can you imagine back then a name like Swamp Angels?
Swamp Angels.
Okay, then you have Greenville, North Carolina,
Yeah.
which included the Greenville Greenies. It's just a
Nice.
great name. You have Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And finally, you have Greenville, Texas. Now, speaking of a name you wouldn't expect during a certain time, also in 1923, the Greenville, Texas team was the Greenville Staplers.
The
What?
Staplers.
Like from that movie. What was that movie?
Office Space.
Yes.
I wonder if the Swamp Angels ever played the Staplers.
Mississippi and Texas. No, probably not. They probably were not in the same league. Leagues back then had smaller footprints than the leagues today, frankly. I actually, if it was not for the Baseball by Design podcast, I doubt I would have ever looked into all of this minutia regarding the name Greenville for a city. And it's all of these cool things come out of it because of it.
And now I would like to see what contemporary logos for the Swamp Angels and the Staplers would look like. And the Greenies.
Okay, well, I'm not going to get on that because
You've got real projects to do.
Yes, so there you have it.
Dan, what a ton of fun. This is always fun, and this was extra fun learning about all these Greenvilles. And now I know half of the United States have Greenvilles in them. Obviously I wouldn't have guessed it because I didn't guess it. I guessed 12. So thank you as always, Dan. And hey, we'll see you once again next week. In the meantime, I hope you have a great 7 days until we can chat again.
Well, I will do my best, and I hope you have an even better 7 days, and I will see you at the end of those 7 days.